So Sahanya, yes, with you alone, we are going to start today. A little late, but I think uh, it's not a big delay. We'll go ahead. Good evening, Sahanya. It is great if I can hear from you because since Sahanya and me alone are there, it's of course great for us to uh, make it interactive. Well, Sahanya, we'll be looking at today on how to develop a paragraph. We actually have looked at grammar and we have looked at the sentences, and now we are moving from the sentences level to the next, which is the paragraph level. Why we worry about this paragraphing is because we know that you often organize sentences, or you organize your ideas in sentences. And of course, those ideas are once again put in paragraphs. We know that it's a force of habit and it's something that we've been practicing. But when it comes to particularly academic writing and particularly academic English, it is a must that we do this in such a way that it is uh, standard and in such a way that it is comprehensive to your reader. Because in academic writing and academic communication, what we expect is to ensure that the message that we communicate is crystal clear, communicated to the reader or the listener or the receiver. Sahanya, am I audible? Can I get a confirmation from your end that I'm audible and you can see me well?
Yes, sir.
Right, perfect. Perfect. Okay, so today we will be moving on slides and we'll be seeing how uh, paragraphs could be synthesized in our everyday academic writing. Okay, what you can see on screen is today's lesson objectives, right? And we'll be simply looking at the first objective. What is it? Identifying the essential components of a well-structured paragraph. Now, paragraph is actually a one idea containing unit of a bigger synthesis. It can be part of your assessment. It can be part of your assignment, essay, thesis, book, or whatever, in which a paragraph means a place where you develop your argument in one main theme, and that paragraph is basically a dedicated unit of a text which is given for one single main idea. So keep that in mind. Keeping that in mind, we'll be following through these learning outcomes, starting with identifying the essential components of a well-structured paragraph. When you know what are the essential components, it's quite easy for you to apply them in your writing. And secondly, we'll be looking at understanding and applying TEZ module. TEZ module in paragraph writing is simply about topic, explain, and conclude. T, E, and C stands for that. We'll be elaborating on this, and you'll see how easy and how cohesive, and of course, how crystal clear when you use a technique like TEZ in your paragraph writing. And then we'll be going into practice. Practice what? We are going to practice writing sentences in a structured and logical order. And then we'll be building on coherent paragraph using source-based information, not simply hypothesizing. We'll be looking at a source and we'll be getting information from sources and go ahead. And finally, we'll be strengthening peer review activity. But here, since we have only Sahanya alone, Sahanya can do it, and we too can revise and develop a scenario-based writing, right? So that's how we are going to move. Let's look at what is a paragraph. I'm inviting Sahanya to just read through the slides. And while you're reading through the slides, you'll be able to detect something. Yes, Sahanya, upon your first reading, what did you understand? A paragraph is quite simple. It's a basic unit of writing. And what are there is group of related sentences. Now remember, the very idea, it is a group of sentences, but all these sentences are related, right? And remember bullet point number 2, it introduces and develops one main idea. Now, one of the critical aspects of a well-structured paragraph in academic writing is that it deals with just one main idea. And if you are going to deal with two ideas, you have to ensure that you are dealing with the two ideas in two paragraphs. So one paragraph stands for one idea. That's simple rule of thumb. And the third bullet point, paragraphs together build the argument or response to an assignment. Now remember, what you are doing in writing is quite simply developing an argument. Developing an argument. And when you're developing an argument, what happens is your argument is actually set at a place and you inform that your reader, and to prove your argument, you might be taking couple of ideas in a lineup in your assessment, assignment, or essay, right? And this argument at a time is developed in one paragraph with one main idea presented, developing the idea or rather the argument that we are pursuing on. Well, you don't need to worry much about this because when we do on elaborating one after the other, you'll realize it how it is going to be. Okay. And a paragraph is basically need to be long enough to explain an idea, and at the same time, it should be easy to read, because if a paragraph is going to be as lengthy as a novel, you know that no one wants to read it, no one wants to keep an eye on it. Yes. Now remember, we use paragraph breaks in our essays to do what? To improve readability. Readability. So one idea at a time in related paragraphs put in one paragraph. Yes, that's how a paragraph is organized. Well, now we are looking at the TEC model. Now, when you are writing a paragraph, we teach you a strategy where you can actually apply the logical paragraph structure. Now, in any cohesive and comprehensive and of course standard sentence, which leads to another sentence and to another and make a whole of a paragraph, should have at the beginning something called topic sentence. Topic sentence. That is what we stand as T in the TEZ module. Now you see, topic sentence means quite simple. Now when we start to write something in a one paragraph, within the paragraph at the very beginning, we inform our reader what particular main idea we are going to deal in this particular paragraph. And when we reveal what main idea we are discussing in this particular paragraph, that sentence is called the topic sentence. Say, for example, let's take an essay on education, right? So now remember, Sahanya, if you are going to write an essay on education, there are a couple of limitations coming into effect. Number one, you should know that your essay has a word limit. It could be 250 words or 500 or 1500 or maybe much more. But even though there is a bigger number of words, but still there is a limit. If your essay is 500 words long, and if you are going to use 3 main ideas in your essay, how many paragraphs can you use in an essay? Sahanya, is my question clear? Now imagine you are going to write an essay on education, right? Your word limit is 500 words. And you are going to write this essay in five paragraphs. What is the word limit of a paragraph? Yeah, 3 ideas, okay. So if it is 500 words essay, and if you're going to use 3, yep, 100, okay. Now this is the limit. And number 2, in 500 words, do you think that you can talk about a very big, very lengthy content about education? So that there comes a limitation. Within 500 words, you have a limit of content that can be used in your essay. That's why we restrict ourselves into a couple of main ideas. Rather than going for 20 ideas in one essay, which has 500 words limit, we'll be dealing with a couple of ideas like 2 or 3 main ideas in the essay, right? And, okay, topic sentence is basically the place where you indicate what main idea that you are discussing in this particular paragraph. So I'm taking the example, education. Now, if our topic is education, you have to narrow it down to a manageable content. So you might limit your topic on education into education in Sri Lanka. Okay. So you're not going to talk about the wider world education. You are going to look at the Sri Lankan education system, but still, can we write about Sri Lankan education in 500 words? Impossible. So then we are going to limit it further. How? We might say history and, or rather, we might limit it to education in Sri Lanka after independence. Oh my God. So if we are taking after independence, you know, it starts from 1948 and this is 2025. So it's a matter of about 77 years, right? So in such a way, when you are dealing with an essay, it's a must that you limit your content to fit into your word limit. So, if we are to talk about education after independence in Sri Lanka, yes, then you have to decide how many points or rather what directions of this particular topic that you will be leading into. Now, Sahanya, imagine that this is your topic. Education after independence in Sri Lanka. So if we are to talk about this particular essay topic, how many ideas that you are going to take into your essay as your discussion point? Just think of the logistics available. You have 500 words and only 5 paragraphs, only 100 words in a 1 paragraph. So what main ideas are you going to use in your essay? Just tell me quickly. Just drop me a couple of ideas that you wish to include in your essay. So we have narrowed it to education after independence. Okay. Okay. You'll be talking about history because from now, okay, how it started. Okay. Is that all you're going to talk about? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, this is why, Putta, we often tell you that before you are writing an essay, any write-up, there needs to have a better, proper planning at the beginning. If you do not start with a proper plan, your essay is not going to be a reality at the end of the day. Well, so let me help you in determining what we are going to talk in this essay. Well, since we have 5 paragraphs in the essay, the opening paragraph will be for us to set the ground for our discussion. Quite simply, we'll be introducing the topic and we'll be telling what we are going to discuss. That will be the first paragraph. And you know, in every essay, there has to be a last paragraph where we bring everything into a conclusion. So the introduction and conclusion are 2 paragraphs which we have to necessarily accommodate in any essay, right? If you have to accommodate these 2 paragraphs separately, then we actually have only 3 more paragraphs, right? That is the body of the essay. The first paragraph is introduction, then 3 paragraphs discussing 3 main ideas, and then there is a conclusion paragraph. So that is how we plot down the essay. Okay. In your body, in the 3 main ideas that you're going to discuss in the essay, let us now limit what those ideas are. So let me tell you a couple of things. The first thing could be history of education or how it started. Okay, let me accept what you said. Well, we'll be taking an overview of history of education. We cannot take a full-length view. We'll be taking an overview. So we can talk about how the English rulers happened to introduce education system and then how pre-education system came into and things like that. So we can talk about history of education. Okay. Then in a second main idea, what we discuss. Maybe we'll be discussing how education is there at this very moment, right? Present day of education. So we take first item, the history, how it began. The second item, how is it happening now, right? And third item may be, which is the third main idea, we'll be taking what will be the future of education. So this is a very logical order. How it began, history. right? How it is right now. And third, how will it be in future? So those are the three main ideas that we determine to take into our essay. Now in the introduction, you have to set a logic in your essay. You have to introduce the topic, telling that education, it's a universal right every country has, and Sri Lanka also following the human rights uh, agreements. And of course, we are a country which had a very rich history where education was a priority and a right of everyone. So we'll be dealing with the introductory part at the introductory sentence. And towards the end of the introductory sentence, as you all know, we have to set something called a thesis statement in which we tell what in this essay we are going to talk about. So there we will tell, in this essay, we'll be discussing a historical overview of our education, leading to a discussion on its present status and developing our argument into how the Sri Lankan education will be in future. So that is the thesis statement that you said in the introduction. Is it clear, Sahanya?
Yes, sir.
Right. Once you set the thesis statement, then you can come to the second paragraph. When you come into the second paragraph, as I told you clearly, the thesis statement we wrote, we indicated we are talking about history, we are talking about present day education, and we are talking about the future of Sri Lankan education. So now you are jumping to the second paragraph to talk about what? What do you talk about in the first paragraph, Sahanya? කියන්න පුතේ අපි කතා කරපු කාරණා තුනෙන් පළවෙනි එකනේ අපි ගන්නෙ. So what is it? Yes, quite simply, history. So you set at the very opening of the second paragraph, you set your topic sentence. In your topic sentence, you tell directly what will you be discussing in the entire body of this paragraph, right? So there you might say a sentence like this. In a discussion on education, it is difficult for someone to forget its history, how it evolved up to now. So what this sentence indicates, in a discussion on education, here in Sri Lanka or elsewhere, it is difficult for us to develop it without knowing its history. So without knowing the history of education, it is difficult for us to develop any argument on education. Now, in this sentence, what you're doing is you give your reader the idea that you are going to talk a bit of an overview of the education history, right? Or else you can find your own sentence like this. Looking at the history will be our first step. So what you're indicating, you tell your reader, yes, let's look at history. Or you might say, a brief overview of the history of education up to now from independence will be our starting point. That is my third sentence, right? The third version of the sentence. Now there also we indicate what? We are dealing with history. Now, Sahanya, if we are going to develop this essay, and if it is about history, I want to hear from you your topic sentence in the second paragraph. Take time, maybe 1 minute, and draft it and send it to me on chat. I'm giving you time. Time counts on now. Thank you, Sahanya. Let us see. Yeah. So you start indicating what Sri Lankan education system has developed well from independence and now achieved a lot of remarkable results. Okay, okay. Putha, now one thing about this topic sentence is, can you hear me, Putha? I wish you can, right? Yes. One thing that you have to indicate in the topic sentence is that you indicate there that you are talking about history here, right? So, ඉතිහාසය ගැනයි දැන් කතා කරන්නේ කියන පණිවිඩය දෙන්න ඕනේ. අන්න එක තමයි topic sentence එකේ පරමාර්ථය. Right? ඔයා දැන් මේ sentence එකම අපි මේක improve කරමු. Improve කරොත් Sri Lankan education system and its development from independence is remarkable. Just imagine, quite simple. Sri Lankan education system, its development from independence is remarkable. When you say it's remarkable, you are giving your reader a clue, an idea that you are going to talk about history from independence. Did you get my point? Did you get my point, Sahanya? Right. So that is the purpose of the topic sentence. So that is simply the T in TEC structure. Right? Okay. Now let's go to what are we going to do next? In the next sentence, within the same paragraph, we develop the dialogue or rather discussion, explaining, providing examples, and bringing evidences to support the topic with details. Now we said in the topic sentence that we see Sri Lankan education system has developed remarkably from independence, right? Now we start giving explanation, right? So you can tell something like, starting from the colonial education system. You know what is colonial education system? Colonizers education system. Starting from the colonial education system, Sri Lankan education took a boost to its education with Free Education Act in 1947. Now what you're getting? You're bringing evidence and examples to the topic of history of education. Did you get me? And then you can talk about the concept of central schools, the concept of universities, the concept of national schools, and so on. Right? How missionary education happened to be developed into a next level of education with Sinhala medium education, which is developed all around the country, because in colonial education system, it was only English medium. But when free education system is introduced, it was completely altered to Sinhala medium so that many people get the chance to study. So what all these are, we actually give examples and evidence about the history of our education system from independence up to now. So that is what we do in E, or rather after topic sentence, that is what we'll be doing. But once again, you have to keep in mind that we don't have much word limit. We have very little word limit. Within that word limit, we have to state the evidences, examples, and explanations. And within the same paragraph, we should bring the very idea of history in education into a conclusion. මේ කියන්නේ පුතේ අපි මේ ඡේදය ඇතුලේ කතා කරන්නේ නිදහසින් පසු අධ්‍යාපනයේ ඉතිහාසයනේ අද දක්වා. අන්න ඒ කොටසට ඒ ප්‍රධාන අදහසට අදාළ නිගමනයකට අපි එන්න ඕනේ ඒ paragraph එක ඇතුලේ. Right? So in this sense, that is what we call C, the conclude. Right? ඔන්න අපි paragraph එක කරන සෙල්ලම. What is the සෙල්ලම we are doing in a paragraph? We start indicating the topic sentence, telling the reader what is the main idea. And then we use TE, in which we explain, we exemplify, we provide evidence, and we discuss the details relevant to the main idea, proving the main idea. And then towards the end of the same paragraph, we bring it into a conclusion. How? Say for example, like in your essay, starting from now we state in the topic sentence about the history, and then we went on telling how the medium of instruction changed with pre-education system, how the school system has changed, and how the pre-education system is allowed, it happened to allow Sri Lankan people to study up to a university level, right? So we'll be talking about all those things in the E, or other explanation unit. And now we are moving to the conclusion. How we say? We wrap up, or rather we summarize the whole things that we've discussed there. So what are they? The history of Sri Lankan education began from the colonial system, and with free education, it evolved into a next level, which we entertain free education up to university level by now. දැන් ඔයා මේ sentence එකේ මොකද්ද කිව්වේ පුතේ? You brought the whole discussion in this paragraph into one concluding sentence. Did you get my point? මං කියපු කාරණේ තේරුණාද පුතේ? ඔන්න ඔය විදිහට පුතේ අපි එක පැරග්‍රාෆ් එක ඇතුලේ main idea එක topic එක indicate කරලා body එක ඇතුලේ explain කරලා examples දීලා evidence දීලා paragraph එක ඇතුලේම we are taking that into a conclusion. ඔන්නෝම තමයි a tech model perfect paragraph is organized, right? So we are going to try it now. Sahanya, look at the scenario. You are a first year undergraduate student in a STEM degree program. Okay? Your lecturer has asked you to write a short paragraph explaining the value of academic reading in STEM studies. Remember, academic reading in STEM studies. The paragraph will be included in a class forum. Now, this is written to take a class forum, academic skills for STEM success. That is your topic, right? And you are invited to write a paragraph on value of academic reading in STEM studies, right? Then ඔයා TEC model එක පාවිච්චි කරනවා. ඔයාට ඕන නම් ඉන්ටර්නෙට් සර්ච් කරලා මේකට තොරතුරු ගන්නත් පුළුවන්. but එහෙම නැතුව දැන් ඔයාගේ නිරුපාද්‍රිත වෙනස් කෙනෙකුගෙන් එහෙම නැත්නම් අන්තර්ජාලයෙන් බලපෑමට ලක් නොවූ ඔයාගේ හිතෙන් try කරන්න TEC model එක පාවිච්චි කරලා ඔයාගේ introduction එක develop කරන්න. We are going to try it right now, here, on this very moment. Yes, I'm giving you 3 minutes for that to think and plan, and then take about 2 minutes more. And in 5 minutes, I want your paragraph. Sahanya, are you there? Give me a thumbs up if you are beginning the work. Okay. Just go ahead. But yes. Sahanya, this is your paragraph. Yes. Success in STEM subjects depends on a lot of skills. To do well in STEM subjects, students need academic skills, including reading carefully, solving problems, managing time, and working with others. In this essay, we will explore some of the important academic skills that help students succeed in STEM and explain how these skills support learning and future career. Okay, Buddha, this is an ideal opening paragraph. Okay. Now you see, even at the opening paragraph, what you see is quite simply, you start with the topic, yes, then you evidence and explain, and you come into conclusion. Now, in introductory paragraph, your conclusion is something like, what is your roadmap in this essay? Okay. Let's move on to the next slide and see what topic sentence. Look, here's an example. Introduce the paragraph's main idea. That is the purpose of the topic sentence. And strong topic sentence, keep in mind, is grammatically complete. has a clear topic and angle. And you must be wondering what this angle is, right? It's not too broad or too narrow. හුඟක් පුළුල් වෙන්නෙත් නෑ හුඟක් පටු වෙන්නෙත් නෑ. ප්‍රමාණවත් තරමට තමයි අපේ හදන්නේ. What is this angle? මොකද්ද මේ හැරවුම? Right? That is some art that we should master. Knowing the angle of a paragraph is a must. Let's look at what this angle is. Okay. Academic reading is now imagine දැන් ඔයා ලිව්ව essay එකේ paragraph එක පුතේ ඔයාගේ opening paragraph එකට okay. දැන් අපි යමු second paragraph එකට. Right? ඒකෙදි තමයි අපි ලියන්නේ academic reading කොහොමද අදාළ වෙන්නේ කියලා. Right? See scenario example. Academic reading is essential for STEM students to develop critical understanding and engage with technical knowledge. Now see. Reading is essential to develop critical understanding and engage with technical knowledge. Well, here you come into the 3 E's. What we have seen earlier was the topic sentence, right? And now come into EEE. Explanation, elaboration, and evidence. See? Through reading scholarly articles, then reading වදගත් කියලා කිව්වේ අපි. ඒක දැන් ඉස්සරහට ගෙනියන support කර කර. Through reading scholarly articles, students become familiar with specific terminology and learn how to interpret data-driven arguments. This helps them prepare for research, lab work, and report writing. Now what we are doing? We are explaining how critical reading is. Why critical? Because students should be able to read articles, and when they read, they become familiar with terminology or vocabulary, and then they come to know how to interpret data and how to draw arguments, right? You see, this is how we move on with EEE. And step 3. Third step is actually coherence and flow. What is coherence and flow? Coherence makes your paragraph easy to understand and logically connected. දැන් මේක මෙහෙම තේරුම් ගන්නකෝ. ඔයා ලියන ඡේදය ඇතුලේ තියෙන සියලු වාක්‍ය එක ලොජික් එකක් වටයි ගෙතෙන්නේ. ඒ වගේම ඒවා එකින් එකට තේරුම් ගන්න ලේසි සහ එකකට එකක් සම්බන්ධයි. Let's go back to the example. Reading scholarly articles, students become familiar with terminology. And they learn how to interpret data-driven arguments. You see, එකකට එකක් සම්බන්ධයි, cohesive. And one thing leads to the other. This helps them prepare for research, lab work, and report writing because you are engaged in STEM. Research, lab work, report writing is part and parcel of it. Well, so coherent paragraph actually is something like naturally flowing from one sentence to the next without making any what? Deviation. අපි එහෙට මෙහෙට යන්නේ නැතුව ඊටාම ඍජුව එකින් එකට කරුණු ගෙනියන. Right? Coherence improve කරන්න අපි මොනවද පාවිච්චි කරන්නේ? Things like transitions. Furthermore, as a result, or rather, consequence of, right? දැන් අපි reading ගැනනේ කතා කරන්නේ. This we don't need to use reading at the beginning of every sentence. Instead of talking about reading, as we indicated in the topic sentence that in this paragraph we are dealing with reading, we can say this. When we say this, it's a pronoun reference, but we know that this refers to reading, right? Well, and there is something called a parallel structure. Parallel structure. Sahanya, do you know what is parallel structure? Do you have any idea? Have you ever heard this thing? No. Okay. Parallel structure means, Putha, when you, structure means the grammar or other tense that you use in the sentences. If you are using simple present tense, you tend to continue the next paragraph in simple present, next paragraph in simple present. So they are parallel. Say, for example, it helps, let's come back to the example we were discussing here. You see, through reading articles, students become familiar with field terminology. They learn how to interpret. Now see, become familiar is a simple present tense. Learn how to simple present. This helps them prepare for research. You see, simple present. So this is parallel structure. Parallel structure in the sense you continuously bring or develop your argument with the same tense, so as indicating that it is easy to move from one sentence to the other. Got the point? Okay. That is how you can ensure coherence and flow in a paragraph. And then come into the concluding sentence. Now, what you are doing in concluding sentence is simple. You wrap up the paragraph and you reinforce the main idea. What do you mean by wrap up? ඔයා දැන් පැරග්‍රාෆ් එක පුරාම මේ කාරණය ගැන ආගිව් කරනවානේ, උදාහරණ සපයනවානේ. ඒ සමස්තය සාරාංශයක් ලෙස ඔයා එක්කව කරනවා. එක්කව කරලා මොකද කරන්නේ? ඔයා කියපු ප්‍රධාන අදහස දැන් තීව්‍රව කියනවා නැවත වතාවක්. ටොපික් සෙන්ටෙන්ස් එකේ ඔයා ප්‍රධාන අදහස කිව්වා. ඒක ඊටාම තීව්‍රව කියනවා. මොකද මේ වෙනකොට ඔයා ඒක සාකච්ඡා කරලා ඉවරයි. Right? Okay. දැන් මතක තියාගන්න, when it comes to the concluding sentence, you are not going to introduce any new idea because you have now done with discussing that idea, right? And you emphasize the topic sentence's importance. Now you indicated in the topics and you indicate emphasis on it. And සමහර විට ඔයාට අගති දෙන්න පුළුවන් ඔයාගේ ඊළඟ idea එක ගැන අදහසක්. You can take a transition to the next idea, but ඒක අදාළම නැහැ. අත්‍යවශ්‍යම නැහැ. ඔයාට අවශ්‍ය නම් පුළුවන්, නැත්නම් එදි නොදී යන්නත් පුළුවන්. Now you see, in this particular paragraph, this is the concluding sentence. Therefore, academic reading forms the foundation for informed thinking and effective communication in STEM disciplines. Now, අපි මෙච්චරලා කියපු කාරණේ නේද මේ අපි නැවත තීව්‍රව කියන්නේ. ඔන්න ඕක තමයි පුතේ concluding sentence එක සාමාන්‍ය ස්වභාවය විය යුත්තේ. So now tell me, Sahanya, whether you are familiar with what is a paragraph and how to set up its beginning with the topic sentence and how to go ahead with explaining, exemplifying, and elaborating, and then how to bring it into a concluding sentence and what is parallel structure. Yes. එහෙමනම් මගේ පුතේ, දැන් it's time for us to write your refined paragraph. This time we are going to talk about we are going to talk about particularly the reading skill. We actually took it. We'll move on to a next. Oh, sorry. We'll go back to the original sentence, the original topic that we took. What is it? The education, history of Sri Lankan education from independence. Set up your topic sentence, bring your supporting sentences, ensure the coherence, and take a concluding sentence. For this, you'll be given nearly 10 minutes. If you're ready to do this, give me a thumbs up, then we can go ahead doing it. Okay, Sahanya, go ahead. Sahanya, I want you to raise your voice and tell me.
It is easier when we follow that structure than writing a paragraph without the structure.
And the very purpose of all this is, at the end of the day, these academic writings are read by very busy readers. So if we are to follow such structures and strategies like the ones we discussed, what happens is your writing is going to be accepted by them because it's easy to follow. It's the idea is given straightforward, directly in crystal clear communication, and that is basically the idea behind all this. So let us try and impart those skills in our life, in our academic career, and you will see that it's going to help you a lot. So your homework is not this, what you can see on screen, but your homework is the homework that I assigned you a while ago. What is it? You're going to improve the sentence you have written with the parallel structure and post it by tomorrow afternoon on WhatsApp group. Is it clear, Buddha? Okay. Have you got anything to ask from me tonight? Okay, then Buddha, good luck with your work. And tomorrow I'll be posting some more work on Moodle. Only you and the other girl, what her name, I can't remember. Ransiluni or someone. They happen to try the academic vocabulary thing. I'll be posting a couple of more activities tomorrow for you all to engage in. And we'll be now directly moving into much and much of advanced reading and of course advanced writing and synthesis, right? So the things that are to come in the forthcoming weeks are going to be really, really advanced and interesting. Be stay tuned. And we are inviting everyone to come and join with us and get this chance of, this is like more like a group class where you all get the chance for each one gets individual attention. Therefore, don't waste that chance. Let's go ahead with that. With that, Putha, today I'm going to wind up. Is that all right? Okay, Putha, then good night and looking forward to see you next week. Next week in the sense Wednesday. Good night, Putha.